Alright, it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. F it up. Oh, I'm in the groove. Back in the mix. Check yourself. Oh, feel that healing beat. All right, heal up. Heal up. Heal up. Heal up. Healing boost. Oh, I like the sound of that. Ooh, I must have this track on repeat. Repeat. Oh, you hear that? You hear that? Oh, let's break it down. Oh, let's break it down. Oh, let's break it. Break it. Break it. Break it down. Let's drop the beat. Beat. Let's get you healed up. Let's get you healed up. Healed up. Healed. Healed up. Yeah, let's move it, people. Let's move it, people. Yeah, let's pick it up. Lucio coming at you. Coming at you. Yeah, time to heal up. Oh, turn it up. Turn it up. Turn it up. Turn it up in my headphones. My headphones. Turn it up in my headphones. Audio medic. Audio medic. Audio medic. Move to the beat. Boost. Oh, this is my jam. Time to accelerate. Alright, it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. F it up. Oh, I'm in the groove. Back in the mix. Check yourself. Oh, feel that healing beat. All right, heal up. Heal up. Heal up. Heal up. Healing boost. Oh, I like the sound of that. Ooh, I must have this track on repeat. Repeat. Oh, you hear that? You hear that? Oh, let's break it down. Oh, let's break it down. Oh, let's break it. Break it. Break.
We are live with another episode of Off the Wall. It's your boy Dazzle167, and today we're bringing you a good, nice, good conversation with a very good friend and a longtime friend of the show, Daniel Orford97. Say hello to the people, Dan.
Yo, what's up, everyone? Nice to be here.
So we got a lot to talk about, but before we do, we should mention that the show is actually sponsored by CGO Console Gaming League, Rogue Energy, Tiebreaker GG, Sose Clothing, and Jerky GG. And today we're gonna be talking about a lot of different things. I wanna have this conversation with you because I think that obviously we'll talk about a lot about you and stuff like that, and we'll have a lot of
hmm
conversations particularly, but you know, me and you, we go way back. We've had like we've been in we are in teams together. We've been in teams
Yeah.
together. We play all the time. If anybody watches the stream, they'll know that we play a lot together. So you know, it's Dan is not really if you know my stream, you know Dan, right? Because he's been there a lot. But I also want to talk about orgs. So at some point in the show, we'll talk a little bit about orgs and stuff like that. But before we do all of that, let's go what we normally do, which we go all the way back to the beginning. Dan,
hmm
tell us about the first few games that you started playing.
Right, this is going back a good couple years. So my first game that I remember picking up was Call of Duty 4, and the only reason it was Call of Duty 4 was because at the time Modern Warfare 2 had just been released, and all my friends had got that. I didn't have an Xbox at the time. I was more of an athletic, like sporty type. I just got an Xbox because my friends were like, "Yo, you should get this. It's sick." And I was like, "Alright, sure, whatever." And at the time, I did have Modern Warfare 2, but I'd lost the disc, so the only game I could play was COD 4.
Right.
So I got into COD 4. I started playing that semi professionally. I entered a couple of tournaments back in the day. Did all right, nothing too serious. Um, and then from there, I just purchased the next Call of Duty for the next 5 6 years up until Overwatch, and then I've been on this for 3 years, and I'm still going strong, I hope.
Nice, nice. So there's a lot of FPS basically in the background of
Yeah,
what you
a
do.
lot.
Let's talk about okay, so I want to get you play a lot of different games, and before we get into some of those
hmm
games, let's talk a little bit about Overwatch. The first time you started playing Overwatch, what got you interested in the game?
It's a funny story actually. I'd heard nothing about Overwatch. I was I was literally just taking a load of unused games to my local GameStop to trade in for some money and to pick up the new NBA. And at the time, Overwatch there was on like a sale or something, and I had spare money left over after I got NBA. So me and my friend were like, "You want to pick up this game, see what it's like?" And we just picked it up, and then I think from there we just fell in love with it. Like the whole team based aspect of Overwatch really drew us in. The so many different characters. Like before that, we'd played a little bit of Smite. That's the only other game I've played with a lot of heroes in. Um, and just the overall concept of the game just really drew us in. So we just started grinding from there.
I think that's interesting because I know a lot of people, you know, start the same way and get into it with friends
Mm.
and stuff like that and whatnot. What were some of the first heroes that you started playing? What did you pick up and why?
So I'm a season one boy. So from season one, I was a diva main. This was back when the ranking system was like numbers, like 66,
Right,
67, and all that. My peak then was 66. Don't know what that correlates to. Probably like diamond or something.
right.
Um, so I played a lot of diva. I pretty much one tricked her because she was the only hero I knew, and I'm pretty sure back then she was still relatively broken.
That's true. Headrammer has a good point. Dan, the ranking system is still numbers.
The ranking system was two numbers.
As opposed to four numbers, right? Yeah, like, I
Yeah,
guess that is.
and you had to win 3 games to go up from 66 to 67.
Yeah.
It was a process.
Yeah, that's it. I feel like there was no real you couldn't really measure how good things were back then,
No,
because
not at
even
all.
if you won, you'd be like, okay, my ranking didn't go up. Like, where am
Yeah,
I going?
whatever.
Yeah, so you could tell why they changed it from one season to the other. Like that season's the only one where you have that rank, because
Yeah, yeah.
it's the only thing like that. So okay, so let's talk about your progression, because I feel like you've been in Masters for a long time, at the very least, and obviously hit GM a couple of times. But I feel like
Yep.
it's hard for EU players to do that in general, just because of due to the population, and there not being that many games. And even if there are a lot of games, if you're 3900, you're most likely still going to be playing with diamonds, because there's not a lot of population. So tell us a little bit early on, before you started playing with people from NA and stuff like that,
Mhm.
where how did you get what was your experience and transition to become better?
So after season one, I went on a steady increase until about season four. Um, so season two, I was like 33 peak. Season three, I think I peaked masters, but dropped back down to diamond. And season four, I picked up Hanzo for the first time and hit 4100 straight away with that hero. This was back when the beloved scatter arrow, and there was no jumping,
Right.
and Hanzo really wasn't a viable pick. And at that time, I changed my gamer tag to Hanzo isn't viable,
Right.
and I'd pick Hanzo and pop off every game. At one point, I think I made it to I think I was like the fourth Hanzo in EU at some point,
Right.
and I was connected with the likes of back in the days Jonah Sibley, Tyradon. Back then, I don't think Octroth was as big, but I think he was still up there. People like Matt, if any of you people are out there, I don't know what his gamer tag is now, but I was up there back in the early stages of like EU, when it was at its peak, when like GM was like top 300 and above, not now where it's like at the start of the season diamonds can get in top 500 in EU.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, that's definitely for sure. Okay, so Hanzo. Okay, tell me a little bit about that, because I remember back then when Hanzo was inviolable, in the sense that like people thought that if you played Hanzo, just like back then, if you played Torbjorn, it was a throw pick,
Yeah.
right? As opposed to now, where Torbjorn is viable, and so is Hanzo, and
Hmm.
so is a lot of different characters. But back then, did you have any experience of people being like, "Oh, he's playing Hanzo, we're throwing because he's throwing."
Yep. I every game I think for about 3 seasons it was just, why are you on Hanzo? He's so bad. And then I'd pop off and they'd be like, oh, never mind. And it was just a cycle of hate, which obviously happens when you pick off meta heroes. Because at the time as well, dive was the most prominent meta. So Hanzo having no real defensive ability and no movement ability, um, you just dive him and die. But what I did, which I didn't really see a lot of Hanzo mains at the time do, was if a Winston dives you, you scatter arrow the floor. Like,
Right.
what's he gonna do?
Right. Yeah, you scatter arrow the floor, and then he gets basically three arrows, right? Because that arrow hits, and then it disperses into like three other arrows. And if you're inside of an actual room,
Yep.
it does like a million damage, right? Because it's going everywhere.
Yep.
But yeah, no,
Or you
that's a
just
good point.
or you just shoot at the floor and instant kill a Zaya 400 HP gone.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
Hanzo back then, in my opinion, was so much better than Hanzo now. Yeah, you've got Storm Arrow now, which takes skill to hit the shots and outputs the same amount of damage as a Scatter Arrow. But if you could use Scatter Arrow properly, and sometimes you get lucky, everyone gets lucky in this game at some point.
Yeah.
His kit was actually really good and didn't really need a nerf. Maybe to the damage, well, definitely to the damage. You shouldn't be able to one-shot tanks.
Right.
But overall, his kit was fun to play. Scatter Arrow, when you did get the kills, it felt great. It felt satisfying.
Right.
And the projectile speed as well. It was a lot lower back then, so you really had to track your targets to be good.
Yeah, I do think that like Monkey is mentioning how like Scatter Arrow definitely needed damage nerf, because I do think that it did have a lot to do. And I mean, if you had scatter arrow in this point of the game, I mean, it would probably be too much, because think about Baptiste ult with a scatter arrow. You know, that would probably exactly right. That would be too much. You know, that would be way too much. Or even you know, because I don't even think Orisa was back then. Imagine the bongos with scatter arrow.
Yeah.
You know, all of those.
Even back when you just had a mercy damage boost,
Right.
you could one shot a Reinhardt.
That's insane. That's insane.
Although during goats, I would have loved that. Just hard counter goats by Reinhardt.
Yeah. Exactly. So okay, so we're talking about Overwatch and stuff like that, and when did you start getting serious about competing in tournaments and stuff like that? Around what season did you really try?
For tournaments, about season 6 and till about season 7, me and my IRL friends, they were all diamond while I was getting up the ranks in Masters. We were just like, should we just enter tournaments? Because at the time it was just free to enter tournaments, no payouts, just for fun.
Right.
So we'd often enter just loads of those just to see how we do against good teams. And I remember one specific match we were against Sir James Parker and Such a Clutch, while all my EU friends were stuck in diamond.
Oh God.
And that game was actually casted, and they had my captain on, which was my flatmate at the time, Jakes. They had him on in their party for an interview, like before and after the game. We learned a lot as a team after that game, because obviously Such a Clutch, Sir James Parker, insane players, like really good.
Right.
And back then we would like average compared to everyone else at the time.
Right.
And we did all right. Like, we lost every map, but 2 maps out of the 3, I think it was, were very, very close. We did a lot better than we thought, and it really just encouraged us to move forward and progress and take it more seriously, because we were like, these guys are like at the top of the level right now, and we're not that far behind.
Right.
And that's when we started to realize that if you're a good team, it doesn't matter how good individual players are on the other team. Your teamwork will always prevail.
Right. What was the name of do you remember the names of the teams that you participated with?
Jesus, this is going back about 2 years, and I do not have a clue.
So moving on from that, when was that? How far along was that until you got to Kinetics?
So when did I join Kinetics? That would have been season 11 or 12.
I think so.
Maybe.
Yeah, probably. Maybe around 10.
Yeah,
maybe
so,
at the earliest.
So I joined Kinetics. I was in the Facebook Overwatch community group. I do not recommend anyone go there. It's such a toxic place. It's terrible. But Gems at the time, you remember Gems from our old team. He'd put up a post looking for players. And at the time, I was like a 3900 DPS main. I played Farah for you guys when I joined, and Widow, which was my tryout. I played Widow on Junkertown. And I'd just seen that post, so I responded, and then he got me a tryout with you guys, and then I joined, and from there, we've just kept playing and playing and playing. Right,
and I mean, it's been something that we've played for a long time, and we've developed like a whole like synergy as a core group, right? Because we've played together, and we've played together like on a consistent basis for most of the team and stuff like that. Tell us, you know, I personally don't remember a lot about the season 5 of CGL because you know, half the season was OXC back when it was the OXC. Overwatch Xbox you know, community and stuff like that, and then it later got rebranded into CGL, and that was right during the season it got rebranded through CGL. But by the time it did that rebrand, we had our, I believe we had semifinals against
Shimada Armada.
Shimada Armada, and we also had a playoff against what do you call the other team? The communism. We had a playoff against
Communism. Yeah.
communism. Yeah. And then
Old rivalry.
right, and then we had our finals against Trash Cans, which Headrammers in the chat for that. So you know, we, you know, for anybody who had the chance to see that, it was really interesting because we had several people on the team, and I mean there was we had to make substitutions at the beginning of the matches because
We had
didn't have
Minty on DPS.
yes, and at the time you were filling in as our second healer. Yeah. So there was a time when you had to play Ana for us for a long period of time because we just we didn't have another healer. So
we just picked up Awful Reflexes and Neon Blue Rain as well as DPS.
Right.
So
Right.
they're having better ping and just better than me on DPS anyway. It kind of worked out pretty well because I turned out to be a pretty decent Ana, and
right.
that's probably the turning point and where I turned into a flex player.
Right, and I think that was interesting too because, there was times where I remember you utilizing you in a way where if for some reason a tank couldn't make it or you would be okay, I can play tank, and then you play tank and you would do really well, and it became like a flexible situation. And here's the thing too, like I think a lot of people that I've talked to from the EU, there's a lot of flexible players, a lot of top tier players from EU who are
in EU you have to be flexible because the state of the matchmaking in EU is awful. Like you can be 41, 4200 and get matched up with Diamond DPS one tricks, and if you're a DPS player in GM, just play tank and let the Diamonds DPS. A good tank is more valuable than like a GM DPS in that situation.
Exactly. I totally agree. I mean, I've been able to play with you and a lot of other EU players as well, and I've been in ranked games in EU. I remember there was a time when it was me, you, and Jonah Sibley. We played, and I think we played like 2 or 3 games, and Jonah was like, "I can't do it anymore." It's just there. So one of the biggest problems with EU ranked is people not communicating enough, right?
Yeah.
Do you think this has a lot to do with just the fact that there's so many different people from different languages who might not want to talk, or like what's your opinion on ranked right now on EU? What do you think can be better?
Obviously language barrier is a massive part of it. We get French, Italian, German, English, Arabic. Like there's so much diversity in EU, and if you do somehow manage to get a whole English like 6-man team on your side, the problem would then be none of them come to voice chat.
Right.
So 1 in about 10 games you'll get a whole team in voice chat that speak your language or can at least understand the bare minimum that's required.
Right.
So the difficulty with EU is just 1, there's a lot less people, 2, language barrier, and 3, everyone in EU is so like hard stuck in their own mentality. Like I do this is what I do, you can pick around me.
Right.
Whereas NA, there is still some of that in NA, but I personally go across to NA because of more consistent games. People are usually more willing to swap and play around and work together.
Right.
And it's just a typical EU thing, really. Like everyone's very ignorant and stuck up and stuck in their own ways.
So, one of the things that I think is interesting about EU as well is that, like, with EU, there seems to be this idea that, like, especially from people looking outside from NA, that, EU has mostly diamond players. There's not a lot of masters players. There's not a lot of high tier level players. So it's Freelo, right? That's a lot. That's what a lot of people say. What do you say in response to that? Because I don't think that's necessarily true, but what's your opinion?
I mean, the top level of NA, say the top probably even the top 500, all of the top 500 NA, probably going over to EU is freelo, 100%. Like, personally, and this is just my opinion, I rate the top 500 NA way higher than the top 500 EU. However, that being said, there are some very good EU top players like Harvey. Harry Pope is an amazing main tank. Like, he's very, very good. I'm not really too well acquainted with the EU scene at the minute because I have spent like 5 seasons over in NA. But all the old DPS that I remember, like Jonah, he was insane. But then there's so many MKs in top 500 EU as well.
Right. And that's the thing too. I think there's a lot of people who will view like I would say that the top tier of the EU, like people who have reached top 10, top 20, who are very good, could be considered really good against any of the top 100 of NA. Like they could probably go against
for sure.
top 100 NA. I think that if you rounded up a lot of the the best EU players, which I don't think I have actually really seen. I don't think I've seen. I think the Throne EU at one point had really good players. And they did really well. Obviously, they won last season for the EU division. But I don't see a lot of, I think that there could be a better division in EU. Why do you think there's not? Because I feel like there's maybe 2 teams or 3 teams that are okay, but I feel like there could be more.
The skill gap in EU is so big.
Yeah.
Like, Masters EU is probably the equivalent to Diamond NA.
Right.
And then above that you have, say, like the bottom 200 in the top 500 of EU is probably about Masters. And then above that is the other 200, which is probably like low GM, maybe low Masters EU players, which are they're still great players, but they're just not up to par with NA. And then like you said, there are some great EU players that can compete. Like, isn't Harvey on a
Harvey is.
Harvey
is
team?
Currently on the Banditos team, which is now Aspire Esports. So yeah, there are tons of people who I've often seen play for NA teams. And I think it's mainly because in NA, there's Harvey is sort of one of those players that it's kind of hard to find an off healer like as high as he is and as good as he is. So it's probably that as well. And one of the other things is that the Throne EU at the time when they won last season of CGL, they were leaps and bounds better than the second highest team, which was a French team, I believe.
I've run into that French stack many a times in comp.
Right. Yeah, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're great, they're good players, but I was spectating the CGL finals and I helped cast a little bit of it as well, the EU finals, and it was just like they just kind of got destroyed. Like there was no other way of saying it. Like they just got really like hard dominated, and I think that it's just gonna kind of continue that way unless there's a little bit of more involvement with other EU players, because I do feel like there are some EU players that are not on teams and not competing in the CGL that could probably be really good, and they just don't have that in them. But let's move on to a different topic.
Sure.
I want to go to something different now. So there was a lot of talk. One of the things that happened recently was that CGL announced streamer tournaments hosted by me and Warren TV. And one of the stipulations about those tournaments is that it's going to be org only. Obviously, there's other things as well, such as Brig is banned, and the roster size is going to be limited to 9 people, which is a lot different from the stuff, which eventually might actually be the norm for some of the CGL tournaments in the future, right? But there's a lot of people who have a lot of animosity against orgs, and I don't really understand why, right? I don't understand. But you made a good point before we started the stream that one of the things that that you think a lot of people may be the reason why I don't want to join an org to compete in, is because there's no real benefits to it.
Yeah.
Right. So
So
there's a lot of that. Tell me a little bit about your opinion about what do you think the difference is going to be for people wanting to join orgs to compete.
well, obviously, if the CGL does go the way of you have to be in an org to compete in just the regular season in the CGL or for tournaments, then people are going to have to switch over to orgs. Like, if you want to compete properly on console, you're going to have to.
Right.
Like, I don't care what you think about orgs or whatever. If you want to play and take it further, that's what you're going to have to do.
Right.
There's no getting out of it. At the minute, orgs don't offer great benefits. Like, you're not going to get paid. That's on you to win and prove yourself. But they will give you benefits like promotion, help, VOD reviews, coaches, even in some cases. Myself I'm starting to do streaming. I'm getting better and better with it. My org has given me an intro for my montage, which I just recently made. They've given me my Twitter header and some other things I won't mention yet because they're still in the works with the org. But they're doing a lot of stuff. And Rose is a relatively new organization that just come up. I was actually doing a bit of research into like what they were before they came back up, and they were like a sniping Call of Duty kind of organization where it make montages out of that. And they've come up and they've like rebranded in a way, so they're expanding into different games just to offer a wide variety of options for console people to get into, to start pursuing. You want to be a pro Apex player? Okay, we'll bring you in. You play under our name. You prove yourself. We'll give you the resources. Like, people shouldn't go into orgs expecting they're going to give me this, they're going to give me this, they're going to give me that. Because you've just come in, not earned anything, and been given benefits. One, orgs don't work like that. Two, the world doesn't work like that.
Right.
You have to earn things.
Absolutely. I think that is definitely, and I think that's a part of the mentality, right? Is that there's always people who are going to ask, well, what is the org going to do for me? It's like, well, maybe they could do something for you, but you kind of have to start earning it, right? You have to find a reason to do it. Like, there's, obviously the Rose Army, who picked you up as a streamer, saw some potential in having you on board, and they asked you, and they got you, and there was great benefits for you joining and stuff like that. I remember when you gave me the news, and I was like, wow, that's amazing, because they really did. They had a really great animated intro. They had a nice little like Twitter banner and stuff like that. They really did a lot for you in a short amount of time, and I think people tend to not really realize that that's actually huge for a streamer, right? Because
it's so valuable. Like, I thought I was gonna come on board, I'd do my own thing, stream for them, maybe get some overlays once I get a PC, and then I'd just be a streamer under the organization. But instead, they've brought me in. They've sort of helped me out. They've given me information about things I didn't even have a clue about. They're promoting me. I think we have meetings every Wednesday at the minute to ask us how we're doing, what we need, if there's any questions we have. It's just like a foundation for support, just to help you.
Absolutely. And one of those big things that allowed it to get better, because I feel like everything's kind of snowballing for you now, where things are kind of like hitting their stride. You got a Twitter banner, you got the Rose Army behind you, and then now you've fallen into getting in a montage for your Overwatch plays. So before because we'll watch the montage. It's a great montage to watch. We'll watch it, but I want you to tell us a little bit of story behind it, because I think the story behind it and what eventually led to it is a good story. So tell us a little bit of background of how the montage came to be.
Sure. So Brian, my good friend for many years on Xbox, known him 7 years. I was just talking to him because he used to do COD montages as well, and I was just like, it'd be really dope if like I had some of my players out there, not to brag or show off, just I think it'd be something cool just for me personally. And then this was at the time where I was feeling, I was in a bad place. I was feeling a bit low, and so I started streaming, and that started to progress and pick up. So me and Brian were working on this montage. Then about halfway through us working on it, that's when I got the offer from Rose to come on as a streamer. So, like you said, things just started to align for me. So I came on as a streamer. They gave me an intro, which then in turn helped my montage that I was already working on. So they gave me that. They promoted it. They put it on their YouTube page, and I believe they stuck with the name for my montage, Stars. Sounds a bit gimmicky, but for me it was like I could see where I wanted to go with like my whole streaming and my montage and just the direction I wanted to go in. And like I'll have a quote, or like a quote that is, you get knocked down, but as long as you land on your back, you can look up, and if you can look up, you can get up.
Right.
And that's where the whole Stars title came from. It's just you keep looking and reaching for them goals, you'll get there.
Right.
And then obviously Brian did the editing for me, sorted me out with that, and the organ with really liked his editing as well. So they actually brought him on as a editor for them, and they're paying him. I don't know what they're paying him, but they're paying him commission at the minute to do
that's actually
whatever they
huge.
need to.
Yeah, that's actually big. I think that's one of the things that like presents itself for this type of opportunity, is that you gaining exposure to somebody, you get that person giving you some exposure, ended up getting them some commissions on some jobs, and that's huge for somebody who might be doing it for fun and stuff like that. So
yeah,
for sure, it sounds like it's definitely worth it. I mean, so let's take a look at the actual video itself. I think because I think it's such a good video. Let's take a look at it.
The quality of the clips are quite low because obviously they're just from Xbox capture.
Right.
So that's what the quality is low. But in the future, I will build up to getting a capture card, a PC, and everything. It's just a slow process at the minute.
No problem. Let's take a look at this.
No worries. Might want to have the audio in there, doesn't it?
Oh, the audio is it?
I can't hear it too much, is it?
got Daniel Orford here already, and like you mentioned, making the switch over to Reaper. It seems like it's panning out, and he's got a Death Blossom, just waiting for an opportunity to use it. Bot's coming over the top.
There
There's
it
the
is.
combination. There's a Graviton. Got a Death Blossom. Finds one, finds two. There's three for Daniel Orford. Kill feed lighting up for Kinetics. Oh, it's got to be a team kill. Minty with the coalesce over
Whoa.
the top. Oh man, it wasn't an overinvestment. Not
There's the
sure, but
yawn.
Kinetics though.
Oh, yeah,
we got hook.
Alright.
Make sure you realize that Headremmer died in that clip, just to make sure that everybody realizes that. All right.
Resing.
Hey, there is no
She's
team.
losing score. She's one.
50 slow. On the hug.
I can't wait to leave this town, 'cause lately I've been feeling down.
Perfect.
Yeah, so it's my first ever attempt at a montage.
Nice. And I mean that's really good. I mean, I think that's probably obviously the clips are great and everything. The editing is amazing. As somebody who's edited montages myself, it's really well made. Like so shout outs to Brian, who I believe his gamer tag is Wild Edits, right?
Yeah,
Wild Edits, yeah.
He's got a Twitter as well at Wild Edits.
At
That's
Wild
his,
Edits, there you go. So if you like
that's
that,
his-
if you like that, he might be able to do a commission for you as well. Who knows? So check him out and see if he's down for do that. But yeah,
he also
so
only did that in 5 days because I kind of rushed him to do it because I was a bit eager. So I'm sure if you spent more time on it, it'd be a lot better. But it's what it is.
right, yeah, no, for sure. So I mean, there you go. And let's talk about your stream. Because one of the first things, you know, when you started first streaming, you know, I was helping you. I was trying to like watch your stuff and help like guide and everything. But one of the things I noticed is that like your FIFA games actually gain a lot of viewership for somebody who's relatively starting out and not as known. Your FIFA does get like quite a few people. I mean, even now, even today, you started one and you were playing, and you know people would come in and chat with you and stuff like that. So, what do you think needs to happen in the future for you to grow on that?
On FIFA specifically, or just my stream?
Well, FIFA specifically, we could talk about other stuff as well. But what do you think about FIFA specifically? Because I think that's a market that's definitely really good for you.
So for FIFA, this year I've been so inconsistent with it.
Right.
I took a 6-month break because I play in the Foot Champs, which is the weekend league. If anyone knows anything about that,
Right.
it's basically it's like the ranked mode of FIFA. And I'd always get Gold 2, Gold 1, which is above average. The average for FIFA is like Gold 3, which is I think it's like 14 wins out of 30 games. I'd get about 16 or 17. But the problem with FIFA is that pay to win is such a horrible experience.
Right.
And it's so disheartening when you're grinding to get better players, you're putting in the work, and then there are people that just chuck thousands on the game to get the best card straight away.
Right.
So it's always just an uphill battle with FIFA, and this year it really just got to me, so I gave it in for 6 months. I came back to it during Team of the Season and started streaming that again, and I don't know, I guess people just look for smaller streamers on FIFA because they're more relatable. Like, you see all these top 100 FIFA players that are absolutely insane. Like, I will never be that good.
Right.
But I think people like watching people that are either just a little bit better than them or that are relatable. So typically people don't like analyzing their own gameplay and critical. But if they're my skill rank and they're watching me, they see my mistakes, they then incorporate that into their game.
Right.
So they learn off me, so they don't have to be negative on themselves.
Nice. I mean, I think that's true. I think, and people tend to forget that there's different types of streamers, right? There's the streamers that, like, you don't have to be at the top of the game to be a quality streamer for a particular game, right? You can be funny, you can be entertaining, you can be engaging as a streamer and still get views. and that it has nothing to do with the actual gameplay that you have. Not to say that people can't be good and entertaining at the same time. You can, but
Yeah.
obviously, but people look for different things, and that's one of the things is that you can be entertaining and be like just decent at the game and still get viewers.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Okay, so tell us what is going to what does the future hold for you now that you've gone into, you got you're in an org, you're with Rose Army GG, and you have a montage, you got your stream schedule going, you're doing things. What does the future hold? What do you think? What are your goals for the near future, for yourself?
So my current goal in terms of followers is I want to hit 100 followers for the end of the year. I currently am at 64, I believe, so that's a decent amount of growth in a little bit of time for me. I'd be happy with that. As far as subs and money, I don't care about that. I don't care about earning money from it. I'm not doing it for money. I'm doing it because I love chat interaction. The more people in my chat, the better. I love talking to people. It makes me feel good. If I can brighten up someone else's day by, I don't know, they're having a bad day, they come into my stream, they want to have a laugh. I'd like to think I'm quite a funny guy.
Right.
You know me. I'm not too serious. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I'm truthful. But as far as my stream progression, I'm gonna keep streaming every day as long as I can.
Right.
I'm working on things with Rose that I can't talk about yet.
Right.
Because obviously they will announce it and then I'll just retweet it.
Right.
But I've got a few different projects with Rose coming up. I'm also hosting other smaller streamers. Even though I'm small myself, I'm still helping other people when I can.
Absolutely.
I've just got a Twitch emote. I submitted it to Twitch to verify it. That should be up within 2 to 3 days ish.
Nice.
I don't know how long that takes. I just read a comment. He sounds like MC Burberry. Oh dear. Oh, that's funny. That's just made my night. But yeah, I've got emotes. I need to work on my sub badges. The thing that's really holding me back at the minute is I need a PC to be able to get overlays and other stuff, which is my main focus at the minute is just saving up enough money from IRL work to be able to afford that.
We have the emote up now, so that everybody can see it. That's Dan's new emote. So if you want to get that emote, go ahead, subscribe to his channel and check it out. Definitely well worth it. By the way, in the time that we were talking, Flimsy, thank you for the subscription, tier 1 subscription. Always a good supporter of the show. Thank you so much, Flimsy, for the tier 1 sub. So I mean that is what it is. Like, for people who don't know your social media or your Twitch, share exactly what it is so they can find you. Where can they find you?
Yep, so my Twitch is twitch.tv/danielorford97, all lowercase, DANIELORFORD 97, and my Twitter is at X lowercase O capital L Danners mate, so XOLDANNERZM8.
Nice. And listen, we have
Octoroth.
Yeah, Octotroph. What's up, Octotroph?
My fellow EU.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, also, Pat Swagger has a question in the chat. He was saying, do you know the information on the person who made the emote? Maybe share that information. They might be interested.
I will post it to my Twitter after the interview, because I need to go on to... It was a lovely woman that I found on Fiverr, actually. And it only cost me £3 something to make.
Nice. Absolutely. That's awesome. Well, listen, that's really good. Headrammer, thank you for posting the links to the
there we go.
to the. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And guys, I think that's all the time that we have. That's pretty much everything that we set out to talk about. Dan, thank you again for passing by. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
We look forward to having all of that stuff. Oh, also mention the Rose Army GG Twitter. Do you know I don't know if you know their
Yeah,
Twitter.
it's just at Rose Army GG, capital R.
Oh, nice, perfect. So definitely check that out, and then that'll be good. We're gonna go ahead and host somebody from the community as well, that are going to be doing stuff. Let me see. I think I have. Yeah, so we're gonna be hosting Blood Oath, which is one of the streamers who is also on my tiebreaker org. She is an Apex player from PS4. Go check her out. She's really cool. And tell her that we are rating her from Off the Wall. Let her know that I said hi as well. She'll enjoy that. So definitely check her out. And guys, tomorrow we're gonna have Fortrix over here from Tiebreaker GG. He is the coach for the Call of Duty team on Tiebreaker. That's gonna be awesome. Check him out. Till then, guys, I will see you. Say goodbye to the people, Dan.
See you
Peace.
guys. Yes.
All right, it's 5, 4,